Kaelen left Shadow Valley, carrying with him the smiles on the children's faces and the scent of the purified air. The seeds of honesty had been sown. After a journey of many days, Kaelen arrived at Port Familiar, the busiest harbor town in all of Aetheria's coast. Port Familiar was the opposite of Shadow Valley. It was bustling, colorful, and noisy. However, beneath this cheerfulness lay a different kind of tension. The harbor was a place where fishermen and merchants were constantly competing, everyone claiming their boat was the fastest or their cargo the most valuable. People weren't listening to one another, they were only shouting their own successes. Kaelen sat down on an old barrel on the harbor pier. Soon, a group of children, smelling of the sea, tired yet curious, gathered around him. Among them was Ronan, a boy in wealthy attire who looked a bit self-important, the son of a famous merchant. Ronan clutched his new, shining telescope tightly. Kaelen smiled. "Hello, sea dogs of Port Familiar," he said, his voice blending with the cries of the seagulls. "I am Kaelen. I have brought you a story from beyond the seas, from a realm the wind itself hesitates to whisper about. Do you have the courage to listen? To open your hearts?" Ronan frowned and stepped forward. "What do you mean, open your heart? Tell us about speed, power, or treasure. Will your stories earn us money?" Kaelen smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "My stories will earn you something money cannot buy, Ronan. The story I will tell you today is about speaking the language of stones. If you listen, you will learn to hear the voices of everyone around you, even your enemies." Kaelen closed his eyes and began to narrate. Kaelen begins his tale. High, high above, beyond the clouds, was a valley where the wind blew from two different directions. High Valley. This valley was shared by two tribes, the feather gatherers, who heard the whispers of living things, and the stone carvers, who felt the vibration of the earth. The feather gatherers, named Asha, lived on the west side of the valley, in soft soil. They could feel the drop of the lightest feather and understand what the animals needed from their whispers. To them, the world was about sound and movement. The stone carvers, named Jackson, lived on the east side of the valley, in the hard and arid rocky terrain. They could feel the rivers sleeping beneath the soil and the minerals within the stone. To them, the world was about solidity and patience. These two tribes shared the waters of the River of Life that flowed through the middle of the valley. But over the years, the river's water level began to drop. The feather gatherers complained that their animals' migration routes were disrupted by the shallowing river. The stone carvers lamented that the dwindling water softened their rocks, making it difficult to practice their art. Jackson, the young and aggressive leader of the stone carvers, decided one day to build a massive barrier of stone blocks in the middle of the river. His aim was to hoard the water on his side. Asha, the gentle and wise leader of the feather gatherers, went to plead with Jackson. "Jackson, what are you doing? The water is vital for the survival of our animals," she said. Jackson replied with a cold voice, without lifting his eyes from the ground. "My stones are cracking, Asha. Our art is dying. I listen to the trembling tongue of the earth, not your feather whispers. Save your own life." Jackson saw the truth on his side, but utterly rejected Asha's truth. The lack of empathy was building a wall between them. Once Jackson's barrier was complete, the amount of water the feather gatherers received from the river decreased. The animals stopped migrating, and the grazing lands began to dry up. Asha's tribe struggled with hunger and thirst. They grew angry and decided to seek revenge. The clever niece of Asha, young Lindis, sneaked into the stone carver's territory one night. Her goal was to steal Jackson's most precious carving, the Generation Stone. As Lindis tried to steal the Generation Stone, she accidentally dropped it, and the stone hit a hard rock, splitting in two. In the morning, Jackson was devastated to see the Generation Stone broken. This stone symbolized the entire history and art of his ancestors. Filled with rage, Jackson grabbed his battle axe and set off to wage war against the feather gatherers. Asha was horrified to see Jackson coming, but stepped forward to protect Lindis. Just as the battle was about to begin, Master Ilara, an old blind woman who lived between the two tribes, intervened. Ilara was the only person who could speak both tribes' languages. Master Ilara raised her hands. "Stop. Jackson, I feel the pain of your stones. Asha, I hear the thirst of your animals. But no one is hearing the pain in the other's heart." Master Ilara turned to Jackson. "Jackson, why did you build that barrier? Because you listened to the language of your stones. But did you ever think to step into Asha's boat and look at the drying pastures? Did you ever feel the thirst of those animals?" Then she turned to Asha. "Asha, why did you steal the generation stone? Because you were starving too. But did you ever think to hold Jackson's hands and feel how those stones whispered the stories of his ancestors to him? Did you see what that stone meant to Jackson?" These words struck Jackson and Asha's minds like lightning. For the first time, they heard not just the sound of their own worries, but the deep pain and fear of the other side. This was the first light of empathy. Jackson slowly lowered his axe. His eyes were tearful. I only thought about the pain of my stones. I didn't think about their hunger," he whispered. Asha bowed her head. "I attacked you too, because I wanted to ease my pain. I forgot that stone was your entire history," she said, picking up the broken generation stone from the ground. Master Ilara smiled. "This is the solution, children. Not listening to each other, but standing in each other's place." And she made them an offer. "Jackson, tomorrow you will go to the feather gatherers for a day. Asha, you will come to the stone carvers. Each of you will live the other's life for one day." The two leaders accepted. The next day, Jackson looked at the animals moaning with thirst on the dry pastures. He felt how dry the soil was beneath his feet. Asha went to the stone carvers area. She looked at Jackson's broken generation stone and listened to the voices of his ancestors whispering to them. She understood that the stone was their identity. When the two leaders met at the end of the day, they no longer looked at each other as enemies. Jackson immediately removed the barrier in the middle of the river, and the water flow returned to normal. Asha, gathering the tribe's best artisans, carved a small crystal glowing with the river's water to bond the two pieces of the broken generation stone together. This crystal now symbolized not just their ancestors, but the shared future of the two tribes. Kaelen finished his story. The children of Port Familiar were silent, weighed down by the narrative. Ronan no longer clutched his shining telescope so tightly. Kaelen gently touched Ronan's telescope with the tip of his staff. "My dear little merchants," he said, "you can see the farthest with your telescope, but if you do not see what is closest, nothing you see will matter." Empathy is the fastest boat in the world. Both tribes in High Valley were right, but being right is not enough. You must also be compassionate. Empathy is the ability to step into another person's boat and look at the sea through their eyes. When you are stuck in your own truth, like Jackson was, you cannot see the suffering of others. Next time someone shouts at you, listen not to what they are saying to you, but to the pain that is causing them to shout. Listen to others, not yourself. In your harbor, everyone claims to be the best fisherman, but no one is listening to how that fisherman's family is making a living, or why that boat is slow. Remember, wars start because both sides think they are right. Peace, however, is born when one side sees the pain that caused the other's perceived injustice. Speak the language of stones. Your true strength is not in steering your own boat fast, but in understanding the fear and fragility in the heart of even your enemy. This is the hardest art in the world. But when you learn this art, you no longer have enemies, only neighbors you haven't understood yet. Compassion and empathy are the only bridges that unite divisions. Kaelen tapped his staff on the ground and disappeared into the crowd of the harbor. Ronan slowly lowered his telescope and for a while watched an old fisherman silently sitting across the pier from his father's boat. For the first time, he tried to see not just the fisherman himself, but the whole story on his weary shoulders.